You had an adult sleepover.
I love that you had an adult sleepover.
It's the best. It's so great. We were really excited because it was going to be like just us girls, like all day and night because boyfriend left for town. But it ended up being a very filled social calendar. So what did we do? We did go walking around with Atlas, my dog, and then my old roommate accidentally sent shoes here. So she was going to come pick them up. And so she was like, you want to chill for a bit? And so she came down and hung out with us for a while, which was great. And then after that, we had happy hour with my brother who lives in California. So then we immediately jumped on to like a Zoom call with him. And then afterwards, we watched a movie. And then we went to bed. And this morning, we literally just had girl talk for like 2 hours, just sitting on the couch with our coffee, mostly talking about our boyfriends. It was great. It was much needed.
That is what girl talk is for.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I talk shit about you all the time. And with that, hello, movie lovers. Well,
in love with movies, in love, in love,
Danny and Nick.
in love with movies. Da da da.
Welcome back to In Love with Movies.
I'm Danny.
And I'm Nick.
And there's another voice here.
It's me.
Yeah, it's me. Me, who are you? Do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, my name is Ghadeer. I'm a health coach, and I also have a podcast myself called Growing with Ghadeer.
Yeah, so I pimped Ghadeer out for this because I was in Ghadeer's Fit Body, Fit Mind Collective program. That's what it's called, right?
Fit Mind, Fit Body Collective.
Fit Mind. Oh, my bad.
The mind comes first. I'm
You're right.
glad to hear that. Yes.
I specifically like the mind to come first.
I just always called it my fit girl group because I just,
It's easier.
my girl group.
That's true. That is always how you refer to it.
My fit girl group. Yeah, so I had Ghadeer come talk today because I don't want to get like sappy or anything, but truly over the past couple of months, I've even told my therapist about you, saying that I'm learning so much from you. Ghadeer has really helped me shape my mind, as her program says, to love myself more.
And I have noticed the differences. And so that's a really good thing.
Yeah.
Before we get too far along into how Ghadeer does that and what Ghadeer does, should we maybe finish the introduction for the podcast that we're on right now?
Oh, there's another part to it?
Well, we normally tell people, who are first-time listeners, maybe what the podcast is about.
Oh, yeah. Let's tell you about this podcast. So we watch movies and stuff. And we talk about love.
That's right.
That's it.
We normally talk about some kind of love topic, about the nature of love, romance, sometimes just self-love, like topics that we're going to be having. And then we discuss someone's movies so that we can get closer to each other and learn more about each other through the movies that we love.
Yeah. And so, Ghadeer, what movie did you pick?
I picked Soul, the Disney Pixar movie.
Yeah. So it's a pretty new release.
The newest one you guys will be talking about ever.
I think so, yeah.
It is. And actually, it may work out just as well as you mentioned Star Wars earlier, and that was our most listened to episode, probably because it was a new movie. So we'll see if that same magic happens here for us this month. But before we get to that, and I will say, I'm going to give a spoiler warning now, just in case anything comes up in the first half of the conversation. Like, people be careful. Just like listen, because there are certain elements of that movie that I thought should not be spoiled for comedic effect, especially that I was not spoiled on.
Yeah.
And so, if you're listening, be cautious. We'll try to let you know in the notes. In fact, I will make a note right now whether you need to have a spoiler warning for the first half or not. But there will definitely be a spoiler warning in the second half. And otherwise, talking about the movie, though, we talk about love. And then, so why don't you all tell us what we're talking about with regards to love today?
I think I started talking about that earlier, but then okay. So anyways, we're going to talk about
neither here nor there.
Self-love, which in my opinion, and Ghadeer, tell me if you believe the same, is the hardest love of all.
1000%.
It's difficult.
It's work.
It is
come
work.
Naturally.
Yeah. So much so that I had to be in a 16-week program with Ghadeer to get it started for me. So do you want to just talk a little bit about what you do and like your background and just why I pulled you on for self-love?
Yeah, sure. So me being an online health coach started with me having my own struggles in my health and fitness journey. When I was at the end of my freshman year in college, it's crazy to think back at how I thought about myself in that time. And then looking back with what was actually true, I convinced myself I had gained the freshman 15. But when I think back, I'm like, I think I actually gained 3 pounds. But I was certain it was the freshman 15 and I had gained all of this weight. I was absolutely losing my mind because I had just been thin my whole life and I was still thin, but I didn't think I was for some reason. And so that summer after freshman year, I just went balls to the wall with exercise and calorie restriction and calorie counting and just getting really obsessive and too obsessive to the point where I was running like 12 miles a week and in between run days, like elliptical for 45 minutes and like not going out to eat with my family because I was scared I'd be tempted by like bread that would be on the table and just like I had no life. And it was terrible and it's obviously unsustainable. And I went from my lowest weight to my highest weight in like less than 4 or 5 months, because if you restrict yourself like crazy, you know, you're going to have to balance that out at some point. And I did by just eating like crazy in my sophomore year. And thankfully, I went through both extremes and came out the other end in the middle. And I, through a lot of trial and error and study and self-exploration and using myself as a guinea pig, I was able to find a way to actually live a healthy lifestyle that didn't feel like an immense amount of work and like killing myself in the process. And I've always just been really passionate about helping people. It always came natural to me. I originally wanted to be a doctor. I ended up changing my mind, and health and fitness has always been a passion for me. So it just became natural that I ended up realizing that I want to do online health coaching because I don't want to be a personal trainer. That's just not enough for me. I don't want to just work out with people. That's really superficial. It doesn't really have a huge impact on most people. And I know I can do so much more. And being an online health coach allows me to fully support people in all of the areas in their mindset. We can talk about how their sleep habits are. We can talk about their relationship with food and exercise and water intake and like all of the things that you need, because you can't just have one thing to fix your whole issue with health. And it's just been great. So I run an online business so I can reach women anywhere in the world like Dani and get to work with them and meet them where they are and help them not make the same mistakes I did. And if they did, then hopefully not make them twice.
Yeah, definitely. I think that, well, your program, seriously, I'm not just plugging her program, but I am, but it really has helped me, and Nick can attest, like,
Yeah.
I'm just like happier and have stopped hating myself,
Yeah.
which is such a, when you like hear it out loud, you're like, that's sad, but that's what society, especially for women, no offense, Nick, but especially for women, it's like diet culture. And it's just like, you're supposed to look a certain way or fit a certain mold.
Mm-hmm.
And bodies just don't always work that way. But what I realize is the more you hate on yourself, the less you're going to do about it, or like the worse it becomes, you know?
Yes.
So
It's
just
really
being able
hard.
to fix your mind first. So do you want to talk a little bit about, like, I said it wrong, but fit mind, fit body collective, and how that's more important in your program?
Yeah. So a lot of people come to me hoping for like weight loss or like to get into a consistent workout routine. And that's okay. You know, you can come for that, but you're going to stay for like the self-love work and the mindset work and realize that that's actually what was the missing component, not the workouts, because that's the hard part. If you can get into the mindset of, I love myself and I deserve to feel good. And that means going the extra mile to spend an extra couple bucks on the fancy fruit that I like, an extra couple minutes on preparing the avocado toast. Like, that is an act of self-love. And if you love yourself, you do really nice things for yourself. You go the extra mile. But when you don't really love yourself, you don't really care what happens to you. You don't care if you drink a bunch of drinks every weekend and wake up feeling like crap, because that's how you treat something you don't care about. So if you care about it, you're going to take that extra care. I like to think about it like somebody, usually a guy who was obsessed with a car, and like they just think about it all the time and they just want to like polish it and get the like nicest wax for it and like take pictures of it and like just do all of the things. And just when people look at them like, you're crazy, why are you going through all these lengths just for your car to like look and like operate really nicely and you don't even drive it that much? That's how you should feel about you, like your body, your mind. Like, go through crazy lengths to just anything that's going to make you feel good on a deep level and just inside and out. And if you're in that place, then it becomes really easy to take a walk every day. It becomes really easy to go to bed early because you deserve to wake up feeling rested. It's easy to drink water because you know you feel shitty when you don't drink enough water. It just becomes that the rest becomes easy. It's like you start there with the mindset in your relationship with yourself. And then the parts that people spend all their time focusing on, like the workouts and the diets, like that just kind of falls in line in a much more effortless way.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, obviously I saw Danielle have a bit of a mental change, especially, but it's something that I feel like I still struggle with, and especially this past year have been going through the whole like whether you are motivated towards an ought self or an ideal self, and sort of the idea that you're kind of avoiding bad things versus approaching good ones. And that kind of motivation can be very different for somebody, you know what I mean? The idea of I'm being motivated because I don't want to be this fat tub of lard, or like I hate my body, or as opposed to kind of being in a headspace of like, I like my body. I like exactly the way that it is. I don't have anything wrong with it, but I like it enough to want to take care of it. And then therefore you're just kind of like, it's more about that positivity mindset as opposed to negativity. I mean, I think I've used this example a couple times, even on the podcast before, but ever since we moved into this house, there's a pull-up bar from the previous owners that I have like never in my life been able to do like pull-ups regularly. Like it's been like a thing. Like I can remember the flexed arm hang, being embarrassed about that with the presidential workout thing when I was
Pull-ups
younger.
are hard. I still
They're
can't.
so hard.
And so like the goal that we had when we first moved in is I was just going to like try one every day. And it took like 4 months before I could actually get to like a place where I had my chin up above the bar just once.
That's
And then
awesome.
it snowed.
Yeah, and then it snowed,
We haven't
and
been
now
able
I
to
haven't
go
been
out,
able to do it in a while. But yeah, no, it was like, but the way I started from the positivity of like, all you gotta do is try. Like you made one attempt, you went out there, you put your arms on the bar and you pulled. And that's the positivity as opposed to being like,
you were like, it would be cool if I could do that. Like that would be cool. Let me see if I can do that. It wasn't like, oh, I'm so ugly and fat, like I deserve to do this as punishment. Like,
yeah, so weak.
You would not have stuck with it for 4 months if that's the place you came from.
Exactly.
Yeah. No,
And
that's
coincidentally, some of that overlapped with the stuff that Danielle was learning and sharing with me from you. So
exactly. That's the one thing about your program that has helped a lot. And it's not, you put it all in a nice little package in your program, but it should be a truth about life that especially women don't know, is like, no food is off limits. You just posted about it today.
Yeah,
like,
I just put that in.
Nothing is bad, but we are taught, we are taught for so long. We're growing up as women, like, don't eat, like you said, don't eat bread, don't eat cake, don't eat dairy, don't eat, do this. And like that actually hurts you more to think like you were just saying,
100%.
what I can't do than what I can do.
Yeah, that reminds me of something I posted last week on my story. It was, I wanted to share what I ordered from Panera, and it was like this broccoli mac and cheese, and then I got like a Mediterranean veggie sandwich. And I was about to type like, oh, here's like a healthy meal you can order from Panera that has no meat, but the mac and cheese isn't really healthy. But then I stopped myself and I was like, obviously, like, yeah, dairy and cheese, it doesn't like do a great thing to your like microbiome, especially if you have like a dairy intolerance. However, from a grander scale, this meal is perfectly healthy for me, because to just allow myself to have this mac and cheese without making a big fuss about it, that promotes a healthy relationship with food. I don't have to start to feel like something is off limits and start to feel really restricted and contorted when I think about things like mac and cheese, and that, ultimately leads into a bigger binge than if I just had the small bowl of mac and cheese to begin with. So then I went and posted, I was like, actually, this is a perfectly rounded, healthy meal. It's both giving me nutrients from the sandwich and supporting my relationship with food. And keeping a healthy relationship with food is the number one thing that I care about when it comes to my diet. And so, yeah, it's like nothing is bad or good. It's just what you're doing supporting a healthy relationship with food. And that should be your number one concern when it comes to diet.
Yeah. And makes a healthy relationship with your own mind. Like poor Nick has been like brought along on the diet journey with me for these past 7 years. Like we've done, I think, all of it.
Keto,
Whole30, keto, vegetarian, which we try not to eat as much meat, but like
pescatarian. Yeah, you've almost cut. Red meat is out of my regular diet, which it used to be a staple of my regular diet, which is probably a good thing. I mean, I feel generally healthier. Although I was thinking, even as Ghadeer was talking, I feel like it's one of those things that I think one thing that's important to notice is it's an ongoing conversation and an ongoing relationship with food. Like I think
Yeah.
about, even not to throw you under the bus, Dani, but
Mhm.
like there's still a little bit of shame around food for me and things that I choose to eat. And it's a conversation you and I regularly have to have, where if I'm left to my own devices, there's Ghadeer, a joke between us where like anything more than 3 steps to cook and I won't do it. Like it just not, that's not,
Hey,
I'm that
this is
bad
not
of a
a
cook.
joke. It's real life. You won't do it.
And like taking the pizza out of the package counts as step 1. But like so like when Danielle has had the time, and this is, I don't, just for listeners so that they know that this is not like, you know, misogynistic, my wife does all the, you know, things around the house. I do all of the like dishes and I do the laundry and things like that. But the thing that we had as an agreement, because I have that relationship with cooking food,
Efficiency.
that Danielle will cook the food, like that, you know. And so if she has time to be able to make us nice meals, I tend to just eat whatever she's making for the most part. You know, like recently we were just eating tofu or something like that. However, there are days where she's busy, she's got a life, she's got a job, and then she kind of maybe, you know, feels worried about me because that means I'm going to eat a lot more pizza and chicken fingers and things of that nature. But like, I liked the way you were talking about the mac and cheese, of like, don't shame yourself for eating the pizza. Like, just, you know, try to not put yourself in a situation where that's where you end up eating.
Yeah.
I.e., try to find time to cook other things, and you do, and you've gotten much better about it, even to being more intentional, meal prep, things like that. But like, then also don't hate on yourself because you ate the pizza. Like, you don't lose everything just because you ate the pizza.
Oh, and I genuinely think like to have that, I don't know, a small bowl of mac and cheese, maybe like 200-300 calories of mac and cheese, like that in the long term is preventing maybe 8,000 calorie binge. So it's like, even if you want to come down to the numbers, it actually is good for your calorie intake, but that's just kind of a byproduct of where I think the bigger thing is like that relationship with food. Like if you are stressed when you think about food, when you think about going to the grocery store, going out to eat with people, then there's something wrong, because eating is the most natural thing and it shouldn't take a lot of mental energy. Like there's a difference between like caring about planning your meals and meal prepping and picking your dinners and finding recipes where like it feels normal and fun, but if you're like stressing about it and like trying to find the thing that is most perfect, like there's something off there.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing that it leads to, like you were saying, is that binge. And that's, I think, when we did restrictive diets, or like there's been months at a time where I'm like you said, Ghadeer, working out every single day, like saying, no, absolutely, I could never have anything that has fake carbs or whatever. And then because of that, one day I just crack. And then there's 3 or 4 months of just not working out or eating cookies, saying, I don't care, gaining weight, and just like sitting in unhappiness.
Because you're constantly telling your natural desires, like, no. Like, you might not want to work out and just take the day off and do something later instead. And you're like, no, do it anyway. And you might just want to have a freaking cookie and you're like, no, don't eat the cookie. And you don't want a salad, but you're like, no, eat the salad. And it's like, if somebody's just yelling at you like week after week, it's like being in a work that, or a job that you hate. Like, you're going to quit. And it's just like, I feel like basic human behavior, but like we don't see it that way. We think we're doing what's right because, oh my God, the diet industry is so successful.
Yeah.
I can't believe like you can still walk into a store and see magazines. I don't look at them as much anymore or think about them, but they are literally the same they were like 10, 20 years ago, 30 years ago. Like, this is how Jennifer Lopez lost 40 pounds in 5 seconds. You can do it too. Like, they still are putting this on the cover of like Women's Health magazine. When will they stop?
Yeah. And it's on Instagram now too. So it's even like in our faces more.
Yes.
Of like celebrity tabloids. And yeah.
It makes me think of things like you saw, because I've been compared to looking like, it's been a while, but Chris Pratt, back when I'd let my hair go out, and I'd always make the joke, you know, fat Pratt, like Parks and Rec Pratt, you know, which I'm totally fine with. That man is handsome as all hell.
Yeah.
But he like, for when, you know, because when you get the superhero movie, he like did a bunch of stuff, got shredded, and I know he's kind of a problematic personality, I guess, now, but what makes me think of it is like he did all these things and like on his Instagram, speaking of like, you know, snack Pratt, whatever, and got really shredded. But then by the time we got to Endgame, they're making jokes about the fact that he's getting fat again because he's getting back to like his natural state for his body, because being that thin, that shredded, essentially denying his body anything, just was not sustainable
No,
for as
it
long
never
as he was
is.
trying to.
Yeah. And the one thing it makes me think about a lot is like, and I know we've talked about this, Ghadeer, is like, I would never say any of the things that I say to myself to my friends.
Never in a million years would you consider saying that.
Yeah. Like just recently I posted a picture of me and my best friend Bree from college, and she's not ashamed of it. So I'm gonna say it. She got a nose job after college. And so she really did hate herself. She hated her face so much that she went and changed it. And me personally, and Nick could say the same thing, I never thought twice of it. I always thought that she was beautiful. I still think she's beautiful either way. And then I posted the picture. She was like, ew, that was my old nose. And I was like, okay, yeah, but you look great. But I was chubby. And she's like, wait, what are you talking about? And it's the same thing. I never think about her that way. She never thinks about me that way. Yet why are we so mean to ourselves? When you were saying this earlier, like, wait, what's the point? Where's it gonna get me?
Absolutely.
Just like hating on myself.
You can get so caught up in it. That makes me think of this time last summer where I bought these pants that I thought were going to be high-waisted, but they didn't end up being high-waisted, and I was really annoyed because I wanted to wear it with a crop top. And like I have this rule where like it's got to go over my belly if I'm going to wear a crop top. I got to cover the lower belly fat that I can literally never get rid of. So, and I'm like literally just stressing in front of the mirror, like, can I get away with this? Like turning and twisting and looking. And my boyfriend's like, you look hot, like you're fine. And I'm like, but my lower belly, it's like literally all I can see is this little tiny like bump on my belly. And I was like, you know what, screw it, I'm just gonna wear it. And then as soon as I like go outside, like in the city where I was like walking, there was a girl that was like, oh my God, like give me your body. And like she started just said that to my face.
That's so I love that story.
Like, oh, I guess I do look okay. But I was convinced, I was like, I'm not allowed to show my little belly fat. But apparently other people thought differently.
Yeah, definitely.
That's phenomenal. And also, I know exactly that tiny little belly thing that you're thinking of.
All got it.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And especially if you've ever like been bigger, because I've been a bit of a bigger guy my whole life. But when I was wrestling in high school, I can remember I got down to 135 and I still would see myself in the mirror. I was like this tall, 5'10", 5'11", whatever I am. And I was weighing
5'10". Don't give yourself 5'11".
I'm somewhere in between. That's right. Anyway, but weighing 135, and I still I now look at pictures of myself from then, and I'm like, oh my God, I look like disgusting and emaciated and unhealthy. But then I can remember seeing myself in the mirror, and there was that tiny little belly fat, like that, just a little bit, like underneath the belly button, and it's just kind of like it's really just sagging skin, essentially, is what it is. But your mind is like, oh, I have a belly, I'm fat.
We all have body dysmorphic disorder. Like I literally think we all do, just to varying degrees. Like we cannot see ourselves the way other people see us. We just can't do it.
Mm-hmm. So I'm going to ask you a tough question then, Ghadeer. What do we do? How do we love ourselves?
Oh yeah. So
give us all your secrets.
Yeah. So I think with everything, it starts with that awareness that you have that issue, and like that it's not normal to talk to yourself like that, or to even just be aware that you are talking to yourself like that, because a lot of people don't consider the negative self-talk they have. Like they just go through life thinking that's just the voice in their head, and they accept it and there's nothing you can do about it. So it's like step one is like awareness that you have this negative self-talk and that you are criticizing yourself completely unnecessarily and putting yourself down and all of these things. And so once you're aware of that, it's like, okay, step one, I have this issue where I'm really mean to myself. And if you can just name it, that is a lot of progress and farther than most people will get. It's just like when you feel an emotion, if you can literally just name it, like I'm feeling frustrated, it immediately just is, you get more calm and feel in control. So name the problem, call it out. And then I think step two is getting real with like, what are the big things that you say to yourself? Like, what are your go-to hateful comments? Like, you look so ugly in that, or like, hey, you look too fat to wear that out, or you're too stupid to do that. Like, figure out what it is so that you know like where your kind of triggers are. And once you know that, there are a couple things you can do. So the reasons we think this way, to kind of get into like the psychology of it, is, these are beliefs that we have, and they happen. It's just hard to say, just from life experiences. We end up having these experiences and these beliefs. And then because of something called cognitive bias, we start to find proof for it everywhere we go. Cognitive bias just means that if you believe something, you're going to find proof for it anywhere you look. And if you are given proof that opposes the belief, then you're going to dismiss it or like not be able to see it. So like you're constantly reaffirming that thing that you believe, and it's that you hate yourself and you're unworthy. So to start rewriting that belief, it's like that's what you have to do. You have to change that belief, because if you believe that, you're just going to see proof for it everywhere. So there are things you can do, like neutral and positive affirmations. Those are things that you say out loud that you want to embody, or you can write them down. Positive affirmations are the common one, like I am beautiful, I am worthy. I personally am a big proponent, and you know this, Dani, of neutral affirmations, neutral thoughts. I think jumping from I hate myself to I love myself is just a really big jump, and our brain is really
feels disingenuous.
Yeah, our brain is analytical, and it's gonna be like, that just doesn't add up, so I'm just not gonna even try to believe it. So like what's in between I hate my body and I love my body is I have a body. Sure. I have a human body. And to go from I hate my body to I have a human body, I literally just got goosebumps like saying that, because it's so believable, and it's so much easier on the heart than I hate my body. And it's literally to just start walking yourself inch by inch. Hopefully you can get to I love and accept my body. But if you only get to I have a human body, that's much better place to be than I hate my body. So I like neutral affirmations like that. And you can like go out of your way to write them down every morning. You know, I have a normal body. This is a normal woman body, just like things that are facts and neutral. But you can also do them in the moment. So if you're looking at yourself in the mirror and you think that your butt looks bad or something, again, as soon as you catch yourself saying like my butt looks really bad, you can say, I have a normal human butt. Just like switch the thought, you know, pivot to that neutral thought. And it literally, guys, when you try this, it feels like a weight is lifted off your chest. And you can do this about any situation. Just pivot to something neutral from negative, and it feels believable. And that's the biggest thing. It's like you actually believe it because it's neutral. So those things like are little things that you could do preemptively and in the moment to kind of start rewriting your thought patterns around your relationship with yourself. And then I think the biggest thing that works for me that I really recommend is to prove to yourself that you are worth loving and have value through your actions. So like I was saying about like, if you have this car that you are obsessed with, if somebody sees you like polishing it and going through all this effort, they're like, no doubt that person loves that car, or else they wouldn't go through all that work. So do that for yourself, even if you don't feel like you are worth it. So like, for a long time, I wouldn't buy avocados and make avocado toast because I was like, it's just expensive and it's just like a long process. But I was like, no, I'm worth it. If I want avocado toast, I'm going to spend the extra few dollars, extra 45 seconds to make it. And now I literally eat avocado toast every day just simply because I think it's delicious and I deserve it. But I think the key is like, you don't have to wait to feel like you deserve it. So do the action before you believe it. So like, take yourself out on a date. Have Nutella on a strawberry in the middle of the day just because it sounds good. Like get dressed up, even though no one's going to see you, simply because you deserve it. And just do the things that you would do for somebody that you love and something that you really cherish for yourself. And eventually your brain will be like, I must really like this person if I'm going through all this effort to like make her feel good and make her look good, and all of these like extra steps that, you know, you don't do that for something that you don't love. It doesn't make sense. And so you just kind of start to trick your brain by like teaching it through actions that this is something I love. And just to remember that it's not a linear path. You know, there are going to be really, really hard days. I have been on this journey for so long, and I'm a coach in this area, among other things. And not that just a few weeks ago, I was sitting on the floor right here, like sobbing, literally hearing my own voice saying, like, you are so embarrassing. This is like, you're not good enough. You're unworthy. That's always going to happen. But it's just about having that happen much less and being able to bounce back from it much quicker, and, you know, being able to diffuse fires in your mind, you know, much more effectively than you might have in the past. So like, just know that it's not a linear path. You're going to have moments where you relapse into those old thinking patterns. It's really hard not to, but it's about, you know, how can I be one step closer to like self-acceptance and self-love today?
Did we just go through therapy? Do you feel better right now after you just spoke?
I do. And I feel like all of our listeners are going to feel the same way. I
This is why I was talking about her so much constantly, because she makes me just feel good.
Oh, I'm so glad.
Well, so I identified and want to talk a little more about a couple things there. One, I love that you talked about the not linear path, like the idea, because I think we have this, especially like you said, diet culture. It's this idea that you're going to like do something today and then it's going to be fixed for the rest of your life. And it's just like, no, that's just not how things work.
No.
And so accepting that and realizing that and understanding it so that you don't beat yourself up as much when you slip. And that then takes into the whole neutral thing that you mentioned. I feel like in my journey with therapy again, I think the words like that have not been used, but that's been what I've been doing. It's just kind of like acceptance of realities, because I don't have as much of an issue with my body as I once did. It's now other things.
Good. Kind of good.
Right. Yeah. We all have our own issues. It's just something else. But that same idea has been what's been going there. It's just sort of like, this just is. There's no reason to judge that it is a bad thing, it is a good thing. Like, it just is. This day, this moment, this is just what's happening.
Yes.
And I really appreciate that. And I also feel like, Danielle, I don't remember you mentioning it before, but I'm glad you brought it up, Ghadeer, because now the next time I catch you looking at yourself in the mirror and maybe saying something, Danielle, about how you don't like what you're seeing, I'm going to remind you of this and say, it's just a human body. It's just a human body.
Yeah, you have a normal human body.
I knew these things, but you didn't listen to the modules like I did.
That's true. You did try to get me to listen to all of them. I did not. I listened to some. I love Ghadeer, and we haven't talked about it too much, and I don't want to take too much time, but I also love that you bring in neuroscience and psychology, and you were just talking about confirmation bias a little while ago, and those things that are just, I think that many diet things use pseudoscience.
Yep.
And from what I've gathered, any science that you are using is real science, and you're sort of like
science with a capital S.
Yeah, right. Like, not fake news, not some other alternative facts. Like, here's let me give you my citations, and not going further than what is necessary, because you're also cautious with your language in terms of like, well, we don't know necessarily what all of these causal relationships are. But if you know that there's a correlation here, especially when you're talking about your body, like you mentioned, like just starting to make yourself, treat your body well. And then it correlates with you starting to feel better about it. We don't know if that's one directional or two directional or what, but what I can tell you is if you start doing this, it's likely to happen. So
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I think that's the thing. It's like, we don't realize that the reason anybody wants to change their body, like, is like, you want to get a 6-pack, lose 20 pounds. It's like, you don't want a 6-pack. You don't want a flat stomach. What you want is to feel confident wearing anything. What you want is to feel worthy of being on the beach. What you want is a feeling. It's not the thing itself. It's what it gives you. And once you realize that, then you realize that you can't avoid the mindset part of it, because you're looking for a feeling. And then when you couple that with the fact that there are literal studies that prove that external factors of a great degree have no impact on your long-term happiness, things like becoming a paraplegic and becoming a millionaire, two very extreme situations. And a study showed that after 1 year, the happiness before and after these really extreme events, your happiness was exactly the same. So you can literally get $1 million or horribly lose your ability to move your legs, and your happiness is the same. So why do you think that losing 20 pounds is going to make you happy if $1 million couldn't even make you happy? So when you realize that you're just chasing a feeling and no external factor can give you that feeling, then what does that leave? It just leaves you and your mindset, and you are the only person who can give yourself that feeling. So it's really just a fool's errand to chase the loss of this 20 pounds, because you're not going to get what you're looking for. The work is internal, and it's much more messy and complicated and painful, but it's literally the only way to get there.
Man,
I like literally, I want to stand up and applaud. Like, I like so much agree with all of that, and it just makes sense. And you're supporting us. I'll knock over all the equipment if I do, though. So
you can snap.
Yes, snaps. Well, I suppose we should probably move on to with that, because I don't think we're going to top that.
This for forever. But so are you ready, Ghadeer? We're going to ask you. So Oh, Nick, what's Closer Through Science?
Yes. So Ghadeer, this is our next segment called Closer Through Science, where we utilize, because we like science and we like research here, a somewhat famous study where researchers made complete strangers ask each other a series of questions that then they measured their feelings of closeness and attachment before and after. And so these questions have been, I always hesitate to use the word proven, but it's easier to say this way, have been proven to make people closer just by the mere fact of asking and answering them for each other. So we're going to ask you one of those questions, and we encourage listeners to share their answers with us as well using the hashtag Closer Through Science on our social media posts.
I love it.
Hashtag Closer Through Science. Okay. I swear that we're just going in order from, like, we started from the beginning, and this is the one that happened to be up. But okay, you ready for this question?
This is a heavy one.
It is.
Hit me.
So, if you knew that in 1 year you would die suddenly,
Okay.
would you change anything about the way you are now living, and why?
I think I can say no because I did have what felt like a near-death experience exactly a year ago. I was in a really bad ski accident on a hill in Colorado, 13,000 feet up a mountain.
Oh my God.
At the time, didn't know what was happening, but came to learn I had a broken rib. I had a punctured lung, and also at that elevation, it just feels like you can't breathe. Obviously, I made a full recovery, but in that moment, laying in the snow, unable to move and feeling like I couldn't breathe, I actually had the thought. I've never in my life had this thought in like full sincerity. I thought I might die because I didn't know what was happening. And you don't come back from that the same person. And that's why I was able to coach you, Dani, because I went full-time in my business after that. I realized that I want to do nothing else but do this business where I get to work with women and impact them and their lives. And from then on, I haven't looked back. I've made a lot of changes, broke off some relationships that were not serving me, created other relationships like the one with you that will serve me and make me really happy. And I'm thankful for that really horrifying experience, because I was suddenly faced with the fact that I'm not invincible. I am fragile, and one tree on Breckenridge Mountain can put me in front of death's door, and I am not about to waste any more time. So I feel like simply because of that experience, I don't think I would change anything, because I already have started changing things in that direction.
Yeah, that's why I thought I looked at the question. I knew this about Ghadeer.
I was going to say,
why I was like,
holy God.
I think I know her answer to this question because it almost happened. So
yeah.
This is one of those times where I'm just like, Ghadeer, not that I did not already think you are an inspiration, but B, I really do think sometimes there's just certain things in life that happen for a reason. And I feel like bizarrely that question was meant to be asked of you. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Nick is like tearing up right now.
I'm a little emotional. I'm okay saying it.
Heavy stuff.
It is, yeah.
But that is just such a good answer though, because I mean, essentially, like you just said, you're like, well, I can say no because essentially in the past year that's been my life. Like,
yeah.
That's just amazing. Wow. Yeah.
And yeah. And we think you're awesome. We usually have you plug things at the end, but because you've just given us all this like goodness and awesome inspiration, do you want to plug your program or your podcast or any of the things? We'll come back to it too, because it's important enough to hear multiple times. But listeners, here's where you can find Ghadeer.
Especially if anybody's, not going to listen to the soul part because of potential spoilers. So
yes.
So Ghadeer, give us your plugs. Where can people find you?
Yeah, Instagram is where I hang out. So Deer Bop Fit is my handle. That's DeerbopFit. Follow me there and you will always be able to connect with me. The program that we've been talking about is launching again for a new round in just a couple days. So by the time this comes out,
I was going to say, when will the next one be? If it's in late March or April?
We will have already started, but you can still find ways to work with me in other ways. Always at the link in my bio is where you can find ways to work with me, and just DM me on my Instagram. But yeah, and I also have the podcast I am inconsistent with. There are plenty of episodes to listen to, but as far as new episodes, my coaching business just takes up so much time. So podcast has to take the back burner every now and then, but Growing with Ghadeer, there are some amazing episodes on there right now. You can find it on Spotify and Apple and iHeartRadio.
It's awesome.
And just for listeners, because I know I had to ask Danielle this, how do you spell Ghadeer? So growing with Ghadeer.
Good question. Ghad as in dog, EER, Ghadeer.
Yes, and she calls everyone her little deers.
Yes.
Aw.
It's so cute. All right. Well, I mean, we don't even need to talk about the movie, right? Because this was just so okay. I guess we'll talk about the movie. Thank you. And then listeners, we're gonna take a break, and when we come back, we're gonna talk about soul.
In love with movies. Da da da.
And we're back. Welcome back, movie lovers. Thank you so much for bearing with us through that brief intermission.
Yeah, we had to readjust a diaper on a cat.
Yay.
I wish it was a joke that's what we did during the break.
It's very literal.
Welcome to my life.
Ugh. Anyways,
Practice, children.
so Ghadeer, let's start with you. What movie did we watch again?
We watched Soul.
Oh yeah, Soul.
Indeed, we did. And so this is a movie starring Jamie Foxx and Tina Fey. And those are the two main ones, but there's a pretty strong ensemble cast throughout, released in 2020, straight to Disney Plus. I don't think it went to theaters. If it did, it may have gone limited.
It was on Disney Plus. It was released initially.
Yeah. One of the ones that are pandemic streaming release, but it was not premium like some of the others. It was just available,
Bummed about that. I wanted to watch that one with the dragon, but it was like a premium thing.
Raya.
Yeah, it looks good.
Yeah.
I like kids movies.
I'm sure it'll eventually come.
It'll be there. Yeah.
I
it
love
just
that
needs a
you
little
said
bit
you
of time.
like kids movies.
They're great. Like, oh my God, they're really
Me too.
good.
There's this new one on Disney Plus. Now sponsored by Disney Plus.
I mean,
it's about a squirrel.
we do a lot of Disney movies on this podcast. So I'm just saying.
I love them. It's a superhero squirrel, and I just think it's so cute.
I love it.
What's
Say no
Oh, that's
more.
right. We haven't watched that yet.
Flora and Ulysses or something.
Yeah.
Fauna and Flora. Anyways, but
Is that
Soul.
based on like how they land, those pictures of squirrels landing and they look like little superheroes? I feel like that has to be the inspiration.
That's the whole inspiration.
That actually is. Yeah, no.
That picture
might be.
inspired this whole movie. It makes sense.
So we
Later
watched
on the behind the scenes.
Soul for the first time last night.
So did you watch it a second time, Ghadeer?
Yeah, I watched it the day after Christmas. I think it was released on Christmas.
Mhm.
I watched it then, and then I watched it this morning again just to refresh.
Nice. I had never seen it, and weirdly, the previews don't show you really at all what it's about.
Yeah, so we're going to say it again. We did end up avoiding spoilers and I'm glad we're through our entire love conversation, but spoilers from here on out, listener, if you have not watched this movie, do
Leave.
yourself a favor.
Get out.
Borrow your friend or family member's Disney Plus. Go
on,
watch this movie first, because we're going to start talking about some things. And I was like shocked at some of the things that happened pretty early in the movie that I don't want you to be spoiled by us. So go do that and then come back and listen. And that way you can be caught up with us, because our love stories are pretty short. It sounds like Ghadeer, you kind of watched it around Christmas, where we just watched it last night. That's pretty much our love story. And we loved the movie. That's it.
Yeah.
Is
So
Love Story, how long ago since you watched it?
just like the first time you saw it,
Okay.
what made you fall in love with it, I guess.
Yeah. But that can lead into normally, because love story usually does include, why did you pick it for us? So Ghadeer, why'd you pick this movie?
Oh my gosh. I think it was so beautifully made, first of all. You know, the movies, like animation movies, are just so beautiful these days. I loved the diverse cast. They were almost all Black and lots of women, and like the main like jazz art musician that he really looks up to is a Black woman, which is just awesome. So the representation is amazing. And then the theme, like the topic, they talk about literally the meaning of life
Mm-hmm.
and what it's like to like be a soul on earth, and like what makes a life meaningful. And they talk about it so beautifully, and to just keep singing its praises. The music, like the actual music, the jazz music, the guy is a pianist and he's amazing. I don't know who the actual piano player was, but that guy is amazing, the composer. But the like main soul song I actually have on one of my like yoga playlists. It's just so like heartbreakingly beautiful.
It is. And I will say, Ghadeer said to me, I think I talked to you about this in like maybe November or December. And I was like, oh, I'd love you to be on our podcast. And you're like, wait, so you're just supposed to know your favorite movie? Like you didn't know what your favorite movie was. So I thought it was interesting that you picked
Yeah,
a very
what
recent
kind of psycho has a favorite movie? Like, that's not a question I can answer, but I recently watched this and I really liked it.
So this is your
Goodfellas.
favorite movie of the time.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, Nick likes Goodfellas.
I was gonna say, like, I have a whole list of favorite movies, but
Well, I'm glad that you picked this because I don't think I would have watched it otherwise. And I will say, a couple minutes in, I got nervous. Like about 10 minutes in, I was like, this is not a movie I'm gonna like, because it started to get real existential real quick, and I was like, I just don't like that.
You thought
Which
it was
the whole
super
movie
abstract.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get that.
And speaking of abstract, so like I knew you were going to be upset about the existential part, which it stayed existential the whole time, but it was surprisingly not about death.
No,
because it starts that within
life.
10 minutes, but it's very much about life. Yeah. And the beauty of it there. But abstract, I was thrown off by the trippiness of everything in the like, not only the great beyond, but the great before. And the fact that it's like these people are just, these creatures are abstract shapes.
Yeah.
So weird in cool ways.
But Nick,
I love that about like animated movies nowadays, the way they can paint the picture like visually and like through the story of these big topics. Like I just love to see how they do it. And it just makes me think of like that movie really reminded me of Inside Out, which also like did a very similar thing of like painting this idea of like emotions and how they affect us through like, you know, I don't even consider this a kids movie, honestly. I just think it's an animated movie.
yeah, it's entertaining for kids, but it has such a good message. I agree. I thought about Inside Out as well. And I thought about it in the terms of like, this is a movie, same with Inside Out, that I loved, appreciated, will never watch again, because it made me feel so many things.
Oh, I felt so much stronger at Inside Out than I did this though, personally.
But we remember when I said we're bad at the structure of our podcast? We skipped a part.
We did skip a part.
Which
we
part?
did skip a part. We forgot Danny's dingle. We even had it on the board. We forgot Danny's dingle.
So Danny's dingle is just my recap of the movie.
So
in spoken word form.
All right. So here's the Danny's dingle music, and go ahead, Danny.
Okay. Jazz music. Finally. Not a teacher. Gig. Dead. Question mark. Great beyond. Little babies. Angry baby.
Scary.
Cat. Pizza rat. And then lots of deep stuff. The end.
Very good. Excellent.
That's my recap. Okay, let's get back to what we were talking about.
The cat part was like, that was the big thing I did not want anyone to have spoiled. You had mentioned to me, Danny, that you knew there was something to do with a cat, but the fact that he ended up in the cat's body, I did not know that the majority of this movie was going to have him in a cat's body. I thought that was such a cool thing.
I knew there was a cat because my mom watched it and she was like, you would love the movie. And I was like, why? Is there someone with disabilities in it? Because I just love like heartwarming movies like that.
Yeah.
She's like, no. And I said, oh, there's a cat. So I knew there was something to do with a cat, but the structure of this movie is, I will say, unlike anything I've ever seen
very
before.
unique.
It starts normal. You're like, okay, it's a normal movie.
Yeah.
And then I paused it at one point and I looked at Nick and I said, did he just die? Like that was not clear to me.
So quick.
Yeah. It was just very abrasive. And then it gets trippy.
And I feel like that was actually a really good choice because like you said, it's a family movie. And I make the distinction between family and kids movies. Kids movies, I think, are ones for kids that no parent's going to enjoy. Family movies. I remember Shrek was the first one I kind of like first was like, this is a family movie because there's like kids can enjoy it. Anyway, but a lot of Pixar movies are like that, family movies. But yeah, I think that they make it almost comical and joking, like you're not even sure it's happening. And I think maybe that's so that you're not like, because the movie's not about his death, they don't want you to like be sitting in the grief of that the same way that they like make you do that for Up or something.
Well, that's how he felt. I think that's the point. Like you were feeling what Joe, the main character, was feeling. Like you were confused. He was confused. You were trying to figure out what was happening. He was trying to figure out what was happening. Like you were feeling what he felt.
Yeah, for
definitely. Sure. It was for sure abrasive, I will say.
Yeah, it was a little bit of a hello.
But then it transforms you into a world. And like you said, that's the beauty of animation is like the world is very weird and unlike one we've ever seen before, yet I believed it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was like, that could be true.
The one thing they did make horrifying though, and I don't know if you guys agree with this, is death. They make Going to the Great Beyond every time they pull it up. It's like
I
this
know,
dark,
yeah.
ominous music, and I was like,
They
that's
open that black
horrifying.
square and they're like,
Yeah.
let's go. And then the music's like, and I'm like, ah.
It's scary.
Oh, see, but I loved that I think that is just like you were saying, Ghadeer. They're making you feel the way Joe feels.
Yeah.
Like the ominous music, and every time it brings up, it's because that is the most frightening thing to him. But then that's part of his journey. Is at the end they offer him his life back, and he chooses not to. He chooses to go to the great beyond.
You're right, though. The women that he meets right when he dies, I guess the one woman's like, I've been waiting 106 years for this. So I guess it's not bad for everyone.
Yeah.
It's just scary for him.
Absolutely. I think it wasn't so much as a fear of death, so much as a desire to live. It was just didn't want to miss out. He just kept saying, like, I'm not going to miss my chance. Like, I'm not done yet. I'm not done yet. So it really wasn't like he was scared of death. It's just like he wasn't done yet.
I am not throwing away my shot.
And I knew we were going to get the Hamilton reference the moment she said something.
Just like my country, a young scruffy and ugly, and I'm not throwing away my shot.
Hamilton would be a good one to watch. Okay, anyways.
Well, so you mentioned Inside Out. I got a little bit of a beef. People mentioned that it's like Inside Out.
Okay.
I feel like that first part about personalities, it was, in my opinion, a weak plot device to create it's the MacGuffin or whatever you'd call it, in terms of like, it's the inciting incident, right? You had to have the inciting incident. Sorry, I've got my phone on not quiet, so in case I get a phone call in terms of COVID vaccine. So sorry, listeners, if you keep hearing dings. But like the whole like, oh, there's this, and we're going to send you to that room, and you kind of get this temperament. And it felt kind of in the same vein as Inside Out, but in my opinion, not nearly as intelligent as Inside Out. And I think that's because it wasn't the real point. Like, the whole point of the movie is not these other things, but it's about, the life that you live and the inspiration you find in the spark. But I just kind of also took issue with, like, there's definitely evidence that temperament is
I agree. I
a thing, but personality is not nearly as
like,
set in stone, especially at birth. Like,
you're gonna be a wallflower and like be dangerously curious in these things. And I think there's like, by the time you're 30, like whatever 70-80% of like your habits and your personality is kind of solidified, which I believe to an extent, but that doesn't mean it's impossible to change your habits, especially if it's before the age of 30. The brain stays malleable, and what's the term?
Neuroplasticity.
It stays plastic.
Nerds.
Plastic until you die. Technically, it's obviously way more plastic at different phases of life.
Right.
You've learned that you literally are always able to change things in your brain.
Yeah, I've got a student studying that right now. So sorry, go ahead.
Cool. No, for sure. I think why it reminded me of Inside Out was two things. Like, the visuals, like the little blue things, they just looked like Inside Out.
And the boat, when the boat came for the first time and I saw it, that reminded me so much of like Bing Bong and all that stuff.
Oh, I didn't connect that, but
And like the room of everything or whatever, like that whole kind of, it was just visually, it was similar. And then I think the other thing that reminded me of Inside Out was it taking on really abstract, kind of heavy themes in this visual way, and like that, a kid could understand. And that's what Inside Out also does.
Yeah, I will say I'm proud of Pixar for like, it's not just another hero's journey or like normal. I guess it is a hero's journey, but it's not a normal
with a big twist.
Yeah, it's like kids are going to think about these things and ask about these things, so why not put it in terms that they can understand?
So then let me ask you two this, because I kind of like have an answer in my head, but I actually think it wasn't entirely clear where it's like a definitive answer. What do you think the sort of message of the movie is?
That life is worth living. Life is to be lived.
Okay.
I guess. I don't know. What would you say?
I think you kind of understand the meaning, the point of the movie towards the end, when he finally does what he was trying so hard to do and everything works out perfectly. He gets back in his body. He plays an amazing show with Dorothea Williams, and then he's welcomed into the quartet indefinitely. And he's standing outside the theater and he's talking to the Dorothea Williams, and he's like, well, what's next? And she's like, well, we'll come back tomorrow and do it all again. And he looks all disappointed, and she's like, what's wrong? And I kind of wrote down notes on this part. What about that specific
Yes.
said, because I thought this was so important. He said, what did he say? I've been waiting on this day my entire life. I thought I'd feel different. And then Dorothea Williams tells him she heard a story about a fish asking another fish where the ocean is. And the older fish said, well, you're swimming in it right now. And the younger fish said, this is water. I want the ocean. And I think, and then after that, he goes on to like play music, and he starts to have the flashbacks of like all of the mundane, quote unquote, mundane moments that have been happening like in the day, like throughout the day, where he was trying to get to this goal, but then he realized the journey, all those moments getting to that goal, hanging out with 22 and like catching that little leaf off the tree and like eating the pizza, like that was the gift. Like that journey wasn't just a means to an end, like that was like the end. And he starts to realize that it's not about, I'll be happy when I get here, I'm suddenly going to feel amazing. It's like, no, life is about not just getting to these places, because it doesn't even make you feel any different. He learned when he literally did everything he wanted to do so badly. And he realized that like the beauty was in the normal things along the way. And I think that was the really important thing. It's just like, life isn't just about finding your purpose and like, being a doctor and like whatever and being creative. It's like, that's great and all, but life is about enjoying all of the moments in between.
Man, she hit us again with that deep stuff.
Right.
And it relates exactly back to what we were just talking about of like, you're never going to be happy once you lose those 20 pounds. It's about the journey. It's about like, just
sorry to tell you that.
The mundane things. Yeah, I agree with you. What were you? Where's yours?
No, I was going to say, so she just said it way more eloquently. See, I can't even say the word eloquently. See, than I would have. But yeah, that was kind of what I took away from it. And that was the one moment that made me cry. Like normally Pixar movies, I cry like a little child. Like I really fall. This one I like just had some tears, but that was the big thing, is just kind of realizing how, because that's again part of my journey this past year, especially is there's so many things that I'm striving for and I don't appreciate the moments that I'm living in. And I think we all need to do that. And I think you're right. And I think the message was there also in like, the joke is there in terms of Graham Norton's character, the guy who's the like sign spinner. And that's how he's in his flow. And he's like so very in control of his zen. And there's a lot of mindfulness themes in this. And obviously mindfulness is about sort of being in the moment. But like the guy who's most connected to his inner self is this one who's just spinning a sign. Like,
who would look at him like, oh, I would hate to be him, he's a nothing, he's a nobody, his job is to spin a sign. But joke's on you, he has what you're trying so hard to achieve with money and success and
exactly.
Yeah, I do like that they took a lot of things that like they called it the zone. So many of us have felt it. Like I feel that when I do improv, or like when I used to do Irish dancing, or like whatever. People always have their thing where you get lost. And I love that Pixar put like a face to it in a way, or like something visual that you can imagine. Yeah, you can imagine yourself in the zone. And I thought that was like really
flow
cute.
State.
Yeah, exactly. And then they also said that the zone and lost souls are very similar, which I thought was interesting. It's just when what's in your zone becomes an obsession.
Yeah, I didn't love when they first introduced that idea and they were like, oh, these things are actually pretty close to each other. And I kind of was like, oh, that feels like you're stretching or something. But when 22 ended up becoming a lost soul, and they kind of talk about how and why 22 was a lost soul, then I kind of was like, okay, I guess I can get that. You just feel like you're so focused on it that you lose connection with that enjoyment of life, essentially. Like,
and I took notes on that part too, because I thought that was so important, especially because once she like ate him and he was like inside her, so he was like inside her head, and she was like, I'm not worthy, and then like what Joe was saying earlier kept going through, where it was like, you don't even have a purpose, like that doesn't count. Oh, walking isn't like your spark, like that's not a real purpose.
Yes.
And it was crazy because you saw her evolution, because she was so like snarky and like, I'm never gonna enjoy anything, like I just want to float into nothingness and like do whatever. But then she got into like earth, and she was like, wow, walking is awesome, pizza is awesome, staring at the sky is awesome. It was so pure. I love that part so much. And you start to see her transform into like somebody who likes things, which is very novel for her character. And she's
suddenly
like,
seems curious about it and like wants to know more from that
she
little
wants to be
girl.
on Earth,
Yeah.
and she's like coming to life. And then she's hears Joe say this, like, that doesn't count, like what you value isn't important, you're not right. And she's so fragile that she believes it. And so she's like, this is why I think to her it's like, this is why I don't even try, which is what a lot of people do. It's like, if I put myself out there, then I could fail and I'll be vulnerable and I'll look stupid. And it was like all her worst fears came true. And so she like, it was even worse than when it started, because now she had proof that is trying is pointless. And so like, she's like, I'm not worthy, just replaying all of those thoughts. I think that's just what happens when you don't trust yourself. Like when you put too much trust in people who don't know you, like trust your gut, your intuition, your emotions, and you can't go wrong. Because clearly when she was so happy.
Yeah, I thought it was super smart the way that they had like all of the mentor examples coming in throughout the beginning of the movie, and they were there for comedic effect of like, oh, that's funny, that's what Abraham Lincoln said to her.
Yeah.
But then in the end you see that they were the ones that actually were crushing her soul. Like you said, they're saying you're doing things wrong because it wasn't the way that they were doing it. And I just find that very interesting. And I'm sure a lot of kids watching this movie, or other people, myself included, is like that message of you're not enough resonates.
And I think it's because she was such a tough little pre-soul. Like they thought they could be like, you know, like, you're so annoying, because she was being so annoying. And it's like, she's actually not that tough. And those words actually really hurt her.
Yeah, the tough exterior, but the very soft interior.
Mm-hmm.
And the mentor thing, definitely, I'm sure Danielle won't be surprised, is something I related to as well, because it's something I've been struggling with and thinking about, of just like an over reliance on mentors and like using them for the wrong things, and thinking mentors can give you like the answer, and the realization that like that there isn't necessarily any one answer, and that you shouldn't take too much of what they say to heart, to the point where you stop trusting whatever just makes you happy. Like, and
at the end of the day, trust your gut as well.
And so much of my life I've kind of been like, well, you shouldn't just listen to what your gut is, because that's hedonism, and that's like, you know, that's for no better good. And I still think there's some truth to that, but there's also like, again, that ideal self versus the ought self. Like there's a difference between trying to sort of strive to be so like
ought to be.
Yeah, in psychology, it's like the idea of like
should.
Yeah, like you ought to do this. This is who you're supposed to be, as opposed to like who you'd ideally like to be.
Okay. I get that.
And that those two things being kind of two different ideas, and that there's a certain type of person, and it's within a motivation theory, and I'm forgetting the researcher now, but the idea being that like sort of there's two types of motivation.
Is it like intrinsic and extrinsic motivation, kind of?
It's a little tied to that. But it's also like so your prevention focus versus promotion focus, and the idea of like, if you're going towards your ideal self, you're sort of it's almost like temperament too, if you've ever heard of like avoidance versus approach temperaments. So it's like the approach temperament kind of put into real life and real motivation of like, if you're promotion focused, you are motivated to try to reach towards something, whereas like
when you in the pull-up thing.
Whereas prevention focused is like, I am doing this to prevent myself from becoming a fat, ugly person, right? Like
running away from and running towards something.
Exactly. See, and so I always 34 words to not get the real thing out, and then you managed to more eloquently.
Nick loves words. Y'all, that was a lot of science. My head was itching for a second, but we got back there. I got it. Okay.
But I loved it. And I think it ties to the message though, of like, because she clearly is like you said, some people were like, oh, that's not the right thing. Or he said, you know, that's not a purpose.
Yep.
But it's like the idea that just existing, just regular old living,
enjoying life. Yeah, there's nothing, it's not selfish, it's not wrong, it doesn't need to be any more than that. Like, to just enjoy life, that's actually a really difficult skill to cultivate, to like really just enjoy a moment and like let that moment be a moment, which I think kind of ties to the idea of like for me, gratitude, like in
Sure.
learning gratitude and flexing that muscle and teaching that myself, like I can actually do that now. Like I can go out of my way to sit on my front porch steps around sunset because the sun will hit my face, and I will sit there and I will literally just sit and do nothing but be. And it's like, that can be what life is about. Like, just go enjoy life for the sake of it. And there's no purpose to it other than that you enjoyed it, and that's enough.
Yeah. In the movie, it was really interesting because at the beginning of the first note I wrote was like, he has a very sad, meaningless life. Like at the beginning, you think that it's just him looking back on his life and he didn't do anything.
Mhm.
And then it's twisted to like, he thinks he didn't do anything, but in reality, he lived and he was living. And it's in those moments that he didn't get to recognize that he was living. So I think they did a really good job of setting things up at the beginning. So you think one way
Nice
and then,
bookends.
Yeah,
and then
absolutely. Like you thought the spark was like your purpose in life. Like I thought that's what they meant too.
Mm-hmm.
Then they said the spark just means that you're ready to live, I think.
Yeah, they literally said that your spark isn't your purpose. And then it was funny because I kept saying like, okay, what's his purpose? What's his purpose? But the movie was so much bigger than that. It was like, there is none. It's just to be, which is just nice.
So that actually answers one of the other questions I had, as I was going to say, do you all feel like there is a quote unquote spark? And what was the spark for 22 and for Joe? But it sounds like you all think that the answer is just to enjoy life, to be ready for life.
I think the sparks are where you find you go to the zone.
Like, for her, like that's what she really loves is to just be.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. And I think we should all have that on some level, but some people might have something else. Like Joe has his jazz, like that can also be your purpose. I think that the big thing is that I actually just read a book basically about like the meaning of life, and this really awesome philosopher that was in a concentration camp when he was in his like 20s, but he really defined the meaning of life, and it was crazy. It was so succinct, and he was basically like, the meaning of life changes and it depends on the moment, on the chapter of your life. It's not just one thing. So right now I can say my meaning and my purpose in life is to continue to grow my business and like be a successful entrepreneur and impact people's lives. But in 5 years, the meaning of my life might be to raise my children. And I think it's just knowing that it changes from moment to moment. And yeah, I think that's just what it is. And we think it's just like one big thing, but it's not. It's many smaller things.
That's deep.
Yeah.
Like,
it keeps
seriously,
getting smacked
like,
in the face with your words.
I'm just so used to like on coaching calls, it's like my default is to like
I love it.
No, it's good. It's helpful. Y'all, you should have Ghadeer be your coach if you're like, this is great. She's available. Go get her. Other things I enjoyed about the movie, just I'm not an existential thinker because it gives me a lot of anxiety and then I poop all the time and just I don't like it. So I also was looking at the fun parts of the movie, and I love cats. And I just love that like a couple of times when he first becomes a cat, he can't help but do cat things.
Yeah.
Like when
the
sunlight
sun
comes out and he's like, oh no.
I was like, we gotta do all these things.
Curling up in it.
Yeah, and he's like, oh, but the sun.
And then he was just playing with it. It was just very cute. And also I love they had a reference to Pizza Rat, who I had to explain to you who Pizza
What
Rat
is that? I remember that
You
scene.
didn't have to explain it to me that night.
No, a couple weeks ago I explained who Pizza Rat was to
Who
you.
dat?
Pizza
Are you
Rat's-
sure this didn't go the other way?
No, Pizza Rat's a famous rat.
Sorry, you tell Ghadeer and any of our listeners because she clearly doesn't actually know what
Pizza
Rat
Rat is a famous rat from the city of New York who literally was just carrying around a giant piece of pizza. So he became Pizza Rat.
It was a small video that went viral because it was like
That's awesome.
on the subway. Yeah.
I
And so
remember
then-
that scene with the rat.
Yeah, he is Pizza Rat. Also it hit hard, I will say, being in the city of Chicago when they showed the subway. It's like no one talks to each other. It's very like dark.
Yeah.
That was
He says it wears you down.
yeah.
Yeah. And they were talking about how it's the same thing every day in and every day out. And I was like, oh, yeah, that is how it's felt on the subway.
Yeah.
And I think Tina Fey, she is one of my famous.
You're famous.
She is famous. Favorite actresses, comedians of all time. And so it was just refreshing to have her in another role. And just like Inside Out, because one of her best friends is Amy Poehler. I was like, oh, now
That's
they both
another
have a
thing,
Pixar.
yeah. Those are
Um,
sister movies for sure.
Yeah. So I enjoyed it. We'll answer this question in a little bit, but I think they wrapped it in a really cute package where it wasn't like as scary as I thought. I literally was scared at the beginning of the movie because I was like, I don't want to think.
There was a lot of heartwarming and like silly things like that. Yeah.
Yeah. And it was just very relatable, I think, on a lot of levels.
Yeah, the more we're talking about it, the more I'm hitting some levels that I guess I maybe either didn't totally see, or I don't know. Part of the reason I like doing this podcast too is, and I listen to a lot of podcasts talking about movies, is I miss the feeling of like going to a movie and then you talk about it with your friends afterwards. Like I love that so much. So having the opportunity to do that with somebody is always fantastic.
Yeah, with different perspectives.
Ghadeer, what were your other favorite sort of moments or favorite parts of the movie?
I think there's two that come to mind. I like the part where Joe asked 22 why she sounds like, why that's her voice. And she was like, I just picked like a white middle-aged woman because it annoys people. I thought that was so funny. And then I really liked the scene where 22 is in his human body and she rips the pants. So they have to go to Joe's mom's tailor shop, and 22 accidentally like says what Joe was just exclaiming, but didn't actually want her to say to his mom. And then that actually opened up a really honest conversation about how he feels about her and how she feels about his job. And then it came out that, by being really transparent, they immediately got to the core of why they had these issues. And she was worried that he would end up like her father and like be struggling, and that brought them closer. And then she was on his side just because they had an honest conversation. She got him out the dad's suit, and she went to the show, and it brought them closer. And all they had to do was just talk about the hard thing and be transparent.
Yeah, I did enjoy her being in his body, because also the barbershop scene.
That was great.
He was just like, how come you never
asked me?
Talked about, you never asked me about my life. So I just thought, it's very wholesome of like the whole wholesome movie, but very like, if you just talk to people and be honest and like share these things, what it can open up in the joy of living.
Yeah, because 22 is so like, she's never lived on Earth, so she doesn't know those nuances of like operating in society, like what you shouldn't say and things. So she was just being honest, and like people were loving it.
Yeah, it was very cute, and she got a lollipop. And fun fact, did you know Paul, who has a very small role, he's like the other guy who his soul accidentally gets killed, I think. And then he's like, oh, my bad, wrong
Terry,
the accountant.
He's eating the chips.
Yes.
Not Terry, but Paul.
But Terry accidentally kills him.
Yeah, that's David Diggs.
The guy who plays Paul.
He plays Jefferson in the smoking hot guy.
I also really like that. I will say, like, as much as it maybe didn't hit home for me as hard, and maybe now I want to watch it again, it didn't go for the low-hanging fruit. You and I both were talking about how we thought the obvious thing was going to be that, like his true purpose was not jazz, but was teaching.
Yeah.
And
I never thought that.
Oh, I thought it was like, that was going to be the obvious thing. And then I thought when they had the barber, the whole, like, your purpose is not what you think it is. He wanted to be, I honestly can't remember what the barber wanted to
vet.
be. Thank you, vet. Yes. But then became a barber. But from Joe's perspective, he's like, talk about people who found their purpose. This guy's, a magician. He's awesome. He's fantastic. He's totally, perfect at being a barber. And the guy's like, I never wanted to be a barber. So I thought it was going to go for like, oh, your job or your purpose in life is never what you think it is. But I appreciated that it was something more than that. It was really like, your purpose in life is just life.
Yeah. And then he finds a way to enjoy being a barber. Like you can still find the joy in that.
Yeah. That was the last deep thing I wanted to talk about.
It was a deep movie for sure.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of if there were any other. Oh, I love the detail of 22. Like, they don't really say anything about it, but there's obviously, there's this long-standing thousands of years history for 22 having mentors and what have you. But they're like, okay, of these people, we've got something billion trillion person number, and then 22. And it's like this implication of like 22 was clearly the 22nd soul to have like ever existed.
That's crazy. Yeah. Like I noticed that, but I didn't really think about it. That's crazy.
I thought it was cute.
Yeah. I thought that was a nice touch. It made me smile. Yeah. All right.
Very good casting. Very good. Wait, where do we go to next? Hearts.
I was going to say.
I don't know how this podcast works. All right, Ghadeer. Out of 5 hearts, how many hearts would you give Soul? What's your heart rating?
5.
Nick?
Ooh, I got to go next?
Yeah.
I'll give it 4.
I also was gonna give it a 4.
Okay, I'll give it 4. I will say, like, in terms of the renew my vows, because normally we'd ask, like, would you watch this again? Do you still feel as committed to it as when the first time you saw it? Ghadeer, since it's only been a couple of months, I'm assuming with your 5 heart rating that you feel about the same as you did from the first time you watched it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think watching it again and talking about it, I'm like even go deeper into why I like this movie. I'm like, it's so good. It makes you think about such important things.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's one of those movies that now I'm not ready to watch it the day after I just watched it.
You need a minute.
But yeah, having now talked about it more, I'm like, I want to go back and watch it with that headspace.
Yeah,
for renew your vows, Nick.
I think I am. That's what I'm saying.
Okay. I won't because I won't rewatch.
I would watch it with somebody else. I will
have to.
Again.
Ghadeer, you and I will make a plan sometime in a couple of months to sit and watch it and talk again.
There are just some movies for me where I'm like, thank you. You served a purpose. I don't want to feel the purpose again.
I get that. I've been there.
But I really enjoyed the movie. It was super cute and it had a great purpose. Great purpose?
Sure.
Great purpose was to show us the meaning of life, which is to just chill.
Its purpose was purpose.
Casual meaning, yeah.
Okay, Ghadeer, let's have you plug yourself one more time for our listeners. Because you are fantastic and you already gave Nick therapy. And you deserve all the clients. So how can people find you and get connected?
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram. My handle is DearBopFit, DeerBopFit. Just follow me on there. Look at what I post, watch my stories, click the link in my bio to work with me in different various ways of coaching, one-on-one and group. And then I have my own podcast, Growing with Ghadeer, where I talk about different ways that you can grow in your health, fitness, mental health, all of that awesome stuff.
Yeah. And didn't you just come out with a bundle thingy?
Yes, I did. The Burn and Sculpt bundle. It's a standalone home workout program. I actually took it offline for now, so you'll have to keep your eyes peeled on my Instagram for when I bring it back. But yeah, that is something. It's a 24-week home workout plan that requires 0 equipment.
And I am not just saying this because Ghadeer's in front of my face virtually, but I and ask Nick, I've said this without Ghadeer in front of my face. Her program has really, truly helped me so much to just feel better about myself and to love myself. Not completely. I'm still getting there, but like it's so worth it. So even if you just want to follow her and watch her awesome stories about things and learn more, it's definitely worth it.
Yeah. Not everyone has the financial ability to necessarily go through a full coaching, but if you have enjoyed any of what Ghadeer has had to say here as much as I have, please follow her on her Instagrams and socials, and then just share that information and just get some of that, listen to her podcast, get some of those same nuggets of wisdom, and then pass it along, and Ghadeer will benefit from that choice anyhow. So please, by all means, do that.
Thanks.
And with that, you have anything else you want to say?
I was just going to plug us. So don't forget to follow us and our social medias, In Love with Movies. There's going to be all the lists of those things there. But then also, if you're interested at all in some of the psychology stuff or org psychology, or you want just random thoughts on movies in general, you can also follow me personally on Twitter is where I'm more active. So on Twitter, I am at Nialfiba. That's the first 2 letters of all 4 of my names, Nialfiba. And Dani, where can people find you? And do you have anything coming up? Keeping in mind, this is probably going to be mid to late April.
Follow me, Dani Miami 4 on Instagram. But also I do comedy. So every other Sunday night, come to my Rec League shows on Zoom at 7 p.m. And then Mondays, I need your vote. I'm in a karaoke contest. So come vote for me. And hopefully in April, I'll still be in it because we got like 7 weeks left.
It's got time. Yeah. And I'm hoping and planning that you will be there. So look at Comedy Sports Chicago for that, to be able to watch Dani perform karaoke.
Yeah, I'm literally just pretty okay at it.
On Monday nights.
Okay. And with that,
I love you, Dani.
Love you, Nick.
We love you, Ghadeer.
I love you guys too.
Thank you so much for joining us. And we love you, listeners. Thank you for listening.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Follow us on Twitter at the letter N, Love with Movies, on Facebook at facebook.com/withmoviesandlove, and on Instagram and TikTok at inlove_with-movies.
You can email us at withmoviesinlove, that's all one word, withmoviesinlove @gmail.com, to share your own love stories with us, suggest future love topics that you might want to hear us discuss, or just to say, hey, we like to hear from you.
Hey.
All original music written and performed by Danny Smith, with our theme song remixed by Paul Brandt.
And this whole podcast was produced and edited by my lovely husband, Nicholas Baldwin.
And special thanks to Nick Stretchberry for our website and podcast art.
We did